Hey guys, Mike here. Welcome back to One Man Op Fishing. Now I'm inside the house today and I wanted to shoot a video on fishing line. Okay, this guy right here. And whether or not, first, if fish can see it, and second, if they even care. There's a lot of talk, and again, if anybody on YouTube knows you can pull up a video on just about anything, whether it's true or false. But there seems to be this feeling, this belief out there, and I'm not so sure it's correct. In fact, I don't believe it at all, to be perfectly honest with you, that bass are somehow going to be scared away from your bait if you are using the wrong line. Now, unless somebody has invented a bait that I know of that doesn't need to be fished with a fishing line, you know, we're all gonna have to use fishing line, whether it's mono, fluoro, or braid. So use the one you love to use. Does it matter if the fish can see the line? And my feeling on the whole thing, after as much research as you can do, is it doesn't make any difference. You're gonna have to use line, all right? So we know the fish bass especially, have very good vision underwater. Yes, they can see the fishing line. They can see all three. They can see mono, fluoro, or braid. Now obviously mono and fluoro are more translucent. Braid is opaque, you can't see through it. But so what, okay? Especially if you're fishing in some kind of cover, it really doesn't matter. Let's talk about what does matter. And I don't know why fishermen overthink this so much, but they seem to, especially the guys that are all selling something. If you're on a high pressured lake, make sure you use this kind of line because you don't want to let the fish see your fishing line. Well guys, this is my Rapala shallow runner. You watch my videos, you know I've caught, I don't know how many fish on one of these guys, both largemouth bass and peacock bass. We don't have any smallmouth bass in Florida because it's too warm. Now let's look at this thing. It's made of balsa wood, I believe it is. So obviously some are made of plastic, other ones are made of rubber. It's got two big treble hooks hanging off it, but that's not gonna scare the bass away. It's not the totally unrealistic feel of the bait, okay? It's not these two giant treble hooks hanging off it that's going to cause you a problem. No, it's gonna be that 8 or 10 pound line coming off it. The fish is gonna see the line and he's not gonna take your bait. Utter nonsense, I'm sorry, but if anything's gonna scare the bass away, it's probably the wooden Rapala. Let's look at the chatterbait, okay, the bladed jig. Same thing going on here. You've got this, not supposed to attract the fish, but here it is moving in the water. You know, it's shiny. I guess the idea is it looks like a bait fish, a shad or a shiner. What about that giant 5/0 extra sharp hook coming off it? You really think this skirt hides that hook in the water? No. I can promise you the bass can see it. And if anything is gonna scare the bass away, it's gonna be that giant 5/0 hook, not your nearly invisible fishing line that the bass might be able to see coming off it for, you know, a foot or two, okay? Okay, the topwater frog, here we go. I just caught a bass on this a few videos back. It hit the water, the bass creamed it. Now, if you've ever seen a real tree frog, which we have all over the place down here in Florida, or any kind of real frog, this doesn't look anything like it, okay? These are not legs, these are just some rubber pieces hanging off. It might feel kind of like a frog, but it's softer. It's got these two giant 5/0 hooks coming off the back, which again, hard to see, but still, the bass can see this. It doesn't matter. I promise you, if it's not gonna hit your frog, it's not because of the line coming off. Come on, look at this thing, all right? And this is one that's kind of my favorite in terms of what the bass can see. This is the spinner bait. Now there are guys that have caught, you know, just an ungodly amount of bass on a spinner bait. I don't really use them. I have one. I've never caught fish on it. I don't really use it that often. But look at this thing. What is this supposed to look like? It looks nothing like a bait fish. This is, you know, colored like a bait fish. All right. The idea is, you know, it spins in the water. It looks like bait fish schooling. All right. But you're trying to tell me the bass can't see this giant piece of wire here? It can't see the gigantic 5/0 extra sharp hook at the back? It doesn't see, well, we got a couple of eyes on the weight, but I mean, what is that supposed to look like? And yet, bass will eat this all and every day. So my point being that the bass can see all these things. I just don't think this tiny piece of 8 or 10 pound test line is going to make the difference on whether or not you catch fish. Okay, presentation is far more important. Water conditions, clarity, temperature, where are the bass at? Are they in the bottom? Are they up near the surface? You know, what are they doing? Is top water happening? That's gonna more affect whether you catch fish on any given day than your fishing line. Now I know guys are trying to sell line, and I got no problem with somebody making a buck, okay? But let's be honest, this is one of probably my favorite bait now. And I only started fishing the Senkos, I don't know, a year or two ago. Hasn't been that long. Before that, I always used a Charlie's plastic worm, okay? Always used the Charlie's plastic worms, and I caught thousands of fish over the last 30 years on them. The reason why I use Charlie's is my local tackle shop has it, and I like to fish there. You know, just never thought about going to the Senko, but let's take a look at it, okay? And I've been using it, and now why does this catch more fish than anything else on the planet? What is it about a stick bait? You know, it doesn't really look like an earthworm, at least no earthworm I've ever seen. I mean, kinda, but an earthworm isn't usually this thick. You know, it's not that length. It certainly doesn't move like an earthworm in the water, okay? And you're telling me the bass isn't concerned about this 1/4 ounce bullet weight? It doesn't care about this giant 4 or 5/0 extra sharp hook? That's not gonna scare the bass off. What's gonna scare it off is the line. So let's not overthink this. There's a word, anthropomorphism, which is when you assign human emotions, human thought to animals. And I think we're doing that with the bass. I don't think bass are that smart, and that's not even a good word. They have instincts. They don't have any intelligence. So a bass is born, and it's either gonna hit artificial lures and baits, or it's not. Let's just talk about that a little bit. I know I have seen videos, and again, this is how I learn things, where they have actually done studies where they take a lake, they fill it with fish, and every fish that gets caught, they tag, and then they record how many times over, say, a year, the fish in that lake are caught. Then they drain the lake, they collect the bass, and then they count up how many bass were caught, how many times, how many bass were never caught, okay? And what you find is the same bass get caught over and over, and then you have this other section of bass, 20%, 30%, whatever it might be, that never hit an artificial bait. Why? My guess is just better instincts. They must have come from a bass that didn't hit artificial baits. And then they've taken those fish, they can take the fish that didn't hit artificials, breed them with other ones who didn't hit, and guess what? Their offspring won't really go after artificial baits. So this idea that somehow the bass sees your line, which it does, but then it knows that that fishing line is a no-no. Don't think a bass is that intelligent. Even if the bass has been caught multiple times, the fact that he's been caught multiple times tells you he's not too bright. In fact, if you go back and watch a couple of videos back, I have caught the same bass on the same lake 3 times. This bass has an ulcer in the side of its mouth, a hole, and you can see it. And over a period of a couple of months, I caught it twice, I believe, on stick baits, Senko style stick baits, and once on my Rapala shallow runner. You know, this guy right here, or one like it, okay? And so that bass, obviously, not the most intelligent bass. He keeps falling for the artificial. So there you are. Let me just talk for a moment also about the intelligence of bass and where we are with this. There's an angler on YouTube who is a professional angler. I like him a lot. Who just dropped a video, you can go find it, on the Whopper Plopper. Okay, now I don't own one. I've fished things that are similar, and of course I've seen guys fish them on different videos. But his point was that 5 or 6 years ago, people were catching all kinds of bass on the Whopper Plopper. But now, nobody's catching bass on it anymore. And it's because the bass got smart. The bass figured out that the Whopper Plopper is an artificial lure, and now they're not hitting it anymore. Well, that sounds like absolute nonsense to me. If that were true, guys, then nobody would be catching bass on any artificial lure. As much as Senkos are used or stick baits, why would bass keep going after them? Well, you could say, well, it's a soft plastic. It's not a hard plastic. Well, so what? If the bass is learning, it should learn that those are a no-no, but they don't. Guys are catching them on spinner baits. They're catching them on, and I heard somebody say the same thing about chatterbaits years ago. When the chatterbait first came out, everybody was catching bass on the chatterbait. Then it died down after these anglers used it everywhere. Well, that's not what's happening. The bass aren't getting smart. Bass aren't smart. Again, they survive on instinct. They have great instincts. But what's happening is when a new bait comes out, let's say it's the Whopper Plopper, everybody is fishing it. Somebody wins a tournament with it. Everyone goes, wow, he won a tournament with the Whopper Plopper. That thing must catch more fish than anybody or any other bait. So everyone starts throwing it. And he said this in his video, that there was a lake he would fish and every angler was throwing it for a long time and catching boatloads of fish. And then all of a sudden it died down over time. Well, that's what happens. Everyone isn't gonna keep fishing it. If you have 100 guys fishing the Whopper Plopper, of course, they're all gonna catch fish on it because they're all fishing the Whopper Plopper and they're all gonna talk with each other. Oh my God, I caught 5 or 6, great. But over time, their use is going to go down. And don't forget, there's going to be another unbelievable bait that came out that's going to hook every fisherman out there, and they're going to start using that one. So their Whopper Plopper use goes down. So now if you have 10 guys on the lake fishing the Whopper Plopper out of those 100, how much chatter is there going to be about how great the Whopper Plopper is? So I don't think we can attribute intelligence or learning to bass. Okay, I believe you can catch the same bass on the same bait multiple times. I don't think the fact that a bait's been out there for a number of years or for decades lessens its ability to catch fish. It's just a matter of how many people are using it. It's like when they figured out that the color red attracted bass and everyone was going to red hooks. Oh my God, red hooks, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But that's because everyone's using red hooks. That's why everyone's catching bass on red hooks. If everyone is using a Senko in a contest, well, guess what? Everyone's gonna catch bass on the Senko. And people are still, you watch any tournament, guys are throwing the Senkos all the time. They're throwing them Texas rigged, they're throwing them wacky rigged, and guess what? They keep catching the same fish over and over. So this idea that somehow fish learn is just a lot of nonsense, I believe. Again, there are fish that are quote unquote smarter than others and just won't hit an artificial. But then there's that one who graduated last in his class, who they still call bass, who will eat the same one over and over. So that's my perspective on it. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I just think that you have to kind of do the math. And if somebody, can show me research that the bass actually learn and they can prove that they learn, well, I'll change my tune and I'll do another video. So Mike here with One Man Op Fishing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a like, give me the thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, leave me a comment down below. Maybe you know something I don't. So tell me about your experiences fishing the same baits and whether you've caught similar fish or the same fish, or, have you fished something and noticed its productivity has just dropped way off all of a sudden? I've never seen that. So nobody I've ever talked to has ever seen that. You can catch the same fish on the same baits over and over. All right, I'll see you guys next time.